Joining us here by phone, as he does every Friday, and ever since we launched this baby back in February, Rob Parker from Japers Rink joining us. Hey, Rob.
Hey, John. How are you doing?
Great. Optimistic. Let's go with that. As far as, you know what, let's start with goaltending. Braden Holtby and Matt Murray. You've got a guy in Braden Holtby who statistically, when you look at his body of work in this postseason, he's been pretty good. A game, he may have wanted a goal or two back in the last game and everything going 5-hole, but I'm not putting any of this on Braden Holtby. I do think he has been, at least over the last couple of games, amazingly enough, and amazing when you think back to the second round last year and Henrik Lundqvist and the epic duel they had. Matt Murray's been awfully good in this series, and for Washington, that has been trouble.
Yeah, I mean, big trouble, obviously. I don't know whether to feel frustrated or vindicated. We've had several talks about Holtby over the last couple months, and we keep getting back to the point that he's not a bystander on a great team. He's part of what makes them a great team. He is crucial to their success, and now we're seeing it. Obviously, it's got to be frustrating for him. His record when he gives up more than like one goal in the playoffs is way negative, below 500, which is not something that you can really pin on a goalie. You can say one goal or a shutout, but at the same time, he's been the second best goalie in the series. He definitely needed to make a couple of the saves that he hasn't made, the saves that the Penguins are getting. You say one or two. You want to talk about a guy who's got the best save percentage in postseason history. You want to talk about a Vezina candidate. He's got to make both of those. I know the first puck was bouncing, but it wasn't moving very fast, and he was out of control a little bit in the crease. The second one, it's a breakaway, sure, but Matt Murray makes the save on TJ Oshie early in that first period before the Penguins went and took over Game 3, I believe it was. It went 5-hole on the ice, fourth-line guy. It's just a tough one to stomach. But, again, it's not like he's letting in, egregious goals every game. You can't look at him and say he's the reason they're down. He just hasn't maybe made the saves that the Caps have come to expect, and that maybe people who want to hang their hat on his postseason save percentage would have expected. So definitely frustrating, but I'm not ready to throw him under the bus or anything. I just think that come up with a couple more saves and then get a little help from up front, and this series looks quite a bit different.
Let's talk about offense, and let's talk about Pittsburgh first here. This has been a little bit of a different paint job on the back end after the suspension with Brooks Orpik, and Nate Schmidt pulled out of the lineup in favor of Mike Weber after Schmidt's turnover that led to what proved to be the game winner from Carl Hagelin in Game 3. And there's been some instability defensively for this team, but by and large, they've been able to take care of Sidney Crosby. They've been able to shut down, for the most part, I guess we can't say that too much with Hornquist getting the game winner, but Hornquist hasn't done a ton in this series. Connor Sheary, who was very good against the Rangers, not as much either. Evgeny Malkin has been okay, but it's really been do we even call these guys secondary guys at this point? Nick Bonino, Carl Hagelin, Phil Kessel. I guess on paper it's a third line, but they have been very good in this series, and you can't defend everybody, and that is the one quality out of the Caps that has been lacking potentially, and we heard Justin Williams talking about it, and we heard Jason Chimera even talking about it a little bit. There hasn't been a lot for the second line, and there are guys that just haven't been able to finish. The difference in this series right now strikes me as the secondary guys who have been able to get it done for Pittsburgh, and the consistency for Washington to be able to roll four lines and get offensive contributions from everyone.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go ahead and say it. Bonino and Hagler are secondary guys. Kessel's obviously quite a bit better than them, but he's not the one even driving most of those. Bonino and Hagelin are making those plays, and it kills me because Hagelin is nothing special outside of a fantastic set of wheels. And I live in the New York area, so I've had to have that discussion with Rangers fans for years, tell them that get over Hagelin. He's not great. Then they traded him because they didn't want to pay him. And, of course, then he gets sent right back to the division, and now he's killing us. I really don't like to see that. And, meanwhile, the Cap secondary guys are just not, matching them. But Malkin had that one goal Game 1, but the Caps ended up winning that. Crosby has really been pretty quiet, and Kessel got a few assists, but I don't think that he's been, extremely dynamic causing it. So I think if we had come into this series and we'd had a conversation and said, hey, following Game 4, Malkin's going to have one goal, Crosby's going to have no goals, Kessel's going to have, 2 or 3 points, whatever it is. I think most Caps fans would say, oh, yeah, we're blowing them out. Meanwhile, Caps are down 3-1, and it's because the Penguins, the team that everyone has been knocking for a couple of years now as being too top-heavy, they're the team getting production from their bottom lines. I mean, yeah, they've gotten some gifts. They've gotten some amazing bounces. Schmidt's turnover was really pretty egregious. Weber's, I don't even know if I want to call it necessarily a turnover. He kind of got handcuffed a little bit and then just swatted the puck right to Hornquist. I mean, he couldn't have made a better pass to tee up Ovechkin. And, they capitalized. And the Caps have had some looks, and they have not capitalized. Even when they've gotten to rebounds, they haven't done it. I talked to Ben Raby, I guess a couple weeks ago, and said, I think the second line is just snake bit against Philadelphia. They are creating chances, but they just can't get it through. I don't really see that so far this series. Last game, they had some sustained pressure, but we are beyond the point where I'm going to take any moral victories around sustained pressure. That second line has got to come through with something. Otherwise, we're looking at the same exact thing. The last time these two teams played, Ovechkin outcompeted Crosby head-to-head, but it's a team game, and the Capitals lost. Right now, I think it's pretty clear, even though he doesn't quite have the production you would expect, especially given the amazing chances he's had, he still has been the more dynamic player in the series. I don't think there's been anyone more individually dynamic in every single game than Ovechkin. But, again, that second line just hasn't done anything. So Trotz shook up the lines. We'll see whether or not, Backstrom can create something with another line and whether Ovechkin can maybe get Kuznetsov going. But if I'm looking up front, I just think Kuznetsov, after the year he had, after even the playoffs he had last year, he's got to come up with something to help take the offensive burden off of the Ovechkin line and power play. So it's frustrating. I just would never have in 1,000 years believed that the Penguins were going to be up 3-1 on the strength of Bonino and Hagwin, of all people.
Want to follow up about the second line too, Rob, as you brought up the lack of production. And part of that shakeup today is Justin Williams moving down to the third line. We see Andre Burakovsky, who now has been all over the map, starting out at second line left wing, then down on the third on the right side, and now moving up to be on the right seemingly again. This has been surprising, I think, for many, only because of the great season that Justin Williams had. There is always a reason you may not know, and injuries, maybe there's something that we just don't know about. But Williams has not been able to produce a whole lot, and now, and Barry Trotz getting this ready for tomorrow, flipping the centers between Kuznetsov and Backstrom, and now also reinstalling Burakovsky on the second line and bumping Justin Williams down. Of the things that I did not expect to see in this series, that probably would rank near the top of the list.
Yeah, certainly. And, maybe there's an injury there. He definitely is losing some puck battles. I'm talking about Williams. He's lost some puck battles on the wall that you don't expect to see him. That's, maybe the strongest part of his game. But he has made some baffling mental decisions. He has, 6 penalties in the playoffs or something like that. I mean, he's done some things upstairs that are not injury related that also are out of character. So, it's unfortunate. He seems like a great guy, but it's time to give someone else a look. And Burakovsky is interesting to me because I was pretty down on his performance early against Philadelphia. I thought he deserved to get pushed to the third line and Johansson deserved to get brought up. But he has slowly come along in the last few games. He's been one of the more dynamic forwards. Now, again, no moral victories. He's going to have to find a way to put one of those pucks in the net. He got that rebound goal, I think, early in the series, game 1 maybe. So if he can keep that up, definitely put him up there. I know that Trotz has talked a lot about liking him on the right wing, giving him that off-wing shot. I think that's a great idea. He's going to be with 2 guys who love to pass the puck, and he's just got to take one step to the middle, and with his shot, that's a dangerous look. So I'm excited to see what they can do, but the bad puck luck has just got to end. Otherwise, this is going to be a real quick series, and, Trotz said there's nothing to lose at this point, obviously, but it's just a matter of, is this the magic that's going to give them the scoring depth that they need.
Rob, before we let you go, I want to ask you, too, about comparing last year to this year in the second round. The Capitals were in the opposite position this time last year where they were up 3-1, had a chance to win in Game 5. The Rangers were able to push back, get it to 7, and then ultimately win it in overtime. If you were going to have an epic exercising of the demons, this would not be a bad way to do it, I guess, and maybe that's the best way to look at it from a fan perspective. We have seen this before. We saw the Rangers, who were the better team in the regular season, push back. The fourth one is always the hardest to win. Obviously, it's got to start with the game tomorrow night, but we did see this recently, and if it goes according to script, maybe those stick-to-the-script hats might even have a little more meaning before it's all over.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely looks a lot like that. I know that I felt fortunate for the Caps to be up 3-1 after 4 games against the Rangers. They definitely didn't look like a team that had, outplayed the other team by that margin. But again, you have all these one goal games, and we had talked about it with Holtby during the season. Again, all those one goal games they were in, he was at least keeping them in it. But now he's got to find a way to make the saves to be on the right side of them. I mean, they're so close they could go either way. Right before Hornquist's OT goal the other night, the Caps had a great third or fourth line shift and had a couple looks. They just couldn't bury it. They've had posts all series. I mean, small bounces could change any of these games, so there's no reason at all to think that the Caps can't win Game 5. And, from there, who knows? But obviously it's a tall order. They've got no more margin for error. I'm not necessarily what anyone would ever call an optimist, but I do think if you want to look for a silver lining, you saw the Rangers did it. You saw, the Blackhawks came back from down against St. Louis, right? And then they were they lost a 1-goal game. That was really an incredibly close game to St. Louis. They could have won that. So I think we're seeing some of these comebacks more now because the parity is so tight. You have so many good teams in close games. So, I still think the Caps have the better goalie of the two. He just needs to play like it. And there's no reason that they can't squeak out a few close games in a row. So, that's what I'll be hoping for. I think it's kind of a different spot for Caps fans to be looking at a 3-1 come from behind instead of dreading blowing a three-goal series lead. You look how nervous Caps fans were up 3-0 against Philadelphia. I feel like there's more zen about being down 3-1 to Pittsburgh after some close games. So, such is the psyche of a Caps fan.
Yeah, that's kind of a weird dynamic, but you might be right about that. Rob Parker from Japers Rink joining us with our weekly Friday conversation. Rob, thanks. Appreciate it.
Yep, anytime, John.